My name is Chloe Vance. I'm 32 years old, and for the last 7 months, I thought I was building a future. Instead, I was just being penciled in. It started at a backyard barbecue last spring. Julian was there, 29, tall, easy smile, working as a creative director for some high-end furniture brand. He was friends with my best friend's husband. We clicked instantly. For the first 4 months, it was like a dream. He was attentive, he sent the thinking of you texts, he showed up. But then, around month 5, the atmospheric pressure changed. Julian started drifting. Plans became maybes. Texts went unanswered for 6, 12, 24 hours. When we were together, his body was there, but his mind was in his phone. If I asked, "Hey, are we okay?" he'd roll his eyes. He started a narrative. I was the clingy one. I was the suffocating girlfriend. The breaking point happened 3 weeks ago. We had Friday night plans. On Thursday at 9 p.m., he sent a 3-word text, "Can't do tomorrow." I called him. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "That's the 3rd time this month, Julian. Is everything okay? You've been so distant lately." I heard a heavy, theatrical sigh on the other end. "There you go again. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Chloe." "What do you mean?" "You're suffocating me," he snapped. The venom in his voice was new, constantly checking in, always wanting to know where I am, needing a progress report every 5 seconds. It's exhausting to keep you validated. I looked at my phone logs. I had sent him 2 texts that day, a good morning and a "what time should I head over?" "Julian, I sent you 2 texts. That's not suffocating, that's a relationship." "It's not the number, it's the energy," he groaned. "You're like a needy puppy. It's desperate. It's a turnoff." That word, desperate, felt like a slap. I felt my heart harden in real time. "So, what exactly do you want, Julian?" "I want to text you when I feel like it," he said, his voice cold and arrogant. "I want to call when I actually have something to say, not because you need your daily dose of reassurance. Just stop being so needy." I took a breath. "All right," I said. "What?" I said, "All right, no problem." "Good. Finally. I'll text you when I feel like it." Click. I sat on my sofa for 10 minutes, staring at the blank TV screen. 7 months. I'd helped him through his promotion. I'd hosted his family for dinner. I'd been his biggest cheerleader. And now I was an exhausting burden for wanting a Friday night date. Fine. He wanted space. I decided to give him the entire vacuum of the universe. I opened his chat. I didn't block him. Not yet. I hit mute. No notifications. Then I went into my settings and toggled off read receipts specifically for him. Finally, I flipped my phone onto Do Not Disturb, only allowing through calls from my sister and my parents. Julian wanted to communicate only when he felt like it. I decided I wouldn't be there to hear it when he finally did. The silence of the first week was deafening. It's funny how much of your brain is occupied by the waiting, the phantom vibration in your pocket, the instinctual glance at your screen every time a light flashes. I had to train myself to stop. I started leaving my phone in the kitchen drawer while I spent hours in my garden, finally tackling the overgrown hydrangea bushes I'd ignored while waiting for Julian's maybe calls. It was a detox. And like any detox, the first few days were the hardest. I'd reach for the phone to share a funny thought, then remember, I'm a needy puppy. I'm suffocating him. The memory of his voice acted like an electric fence, pushing me back into my own life. I reconnected with my older sister, Maya. We went out for drinks on that Friday night. Julian had canceled. "Where's the shadow?" Maya asked, glancing behind me. "The shadow is currently enjoying his space," I said, taking a sip of my martini. He told me I was too needy, so I'm being the least needy person on the planet. I'm being a ghost. Maya laughed, but then she turned serious. "Chloe, men like Julian don't actually want space. They want a leash. They want to know you're sitting by the door waiting for them. If you stop sitting there, he's going to lose his mind." I didn't believe her then. I thought he'd be relieved. I thought he'd enjoy his freedom, and I'd never hear from him again. What I didn't know was that Julian's "I'll text when I feel like it" phase lasted exactly 48 hours. Behind the scenes, inside that muted folder I refused to open, the digital walls were already starting to crumble. He had no idea I'd turned off my read receipts. As far as he knew, his messages were sitting there, delivered, but ignored. Saturday, 2 p.m. "Hey, hope your Saturday is good." Sunday, 11 a.m. "Quiet weekend? Want to grab a late lunch?" Monday, 8 a.m. "Good morning. You haven't replied. Everything okay?" He was feeling like it a lot more often now that I wasn't the one initiating. By Wednesday, I decided to take a spontaneous road trip with Maya. No plans, no checking in. We drove 3 hours up the coast. I posted a single photo of the sunset on my story, the first sign of life I'd shown on social media in days. I didn't check my views. I didn't check my DMs. I just breathed in the salt air. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a puppy. I felt like a woman who owned her own time. But as I was laughing over a seafood dinner, my phone buzzed with a call that bypassed the DND filter. It was my best friend, Sarah. Chloe? Oh, thank God you picked up, she said, her voice sounding frantic. What's wrong? Is everything okay? Julian's been calling me and Mark for 2 days straight. He says you've gone missing. He says you're punishing him because of some tiny argument, and he's worried you've done something drastic. I felt a chill go down my spine. Drastic? Sarah, I told him no problem when he asked for space. I'm literally on a road trip with Maya. Well, he's telling everyone you're having some kind of mental breakdown. Chloe, he sounds like the victim. I looked at Maya. She just gave me a look that said, I told you so. The space Julian had demanded was now a vacuum, and he was realizing that without my neediness to fill it, he was standing in a very cold, very lonely room. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about his control. The realization hit me like ice water. Julian wasn't just distant. He was a strategist. By telling our mutual friends I was having a breakdown, he was preemptively discrediting my silence. He was making sure that when I finally emerged, anything I said would be viewed through the lens of my supposed instability. I stayed on that coast trip for the rest of the week. I didn't break the silence. I didn't call him to defend myself. I knew that the moment I engaged, I'd be falling back into the role of the emotional one. Instead, I lived. I hiked, I read, and I actually slept through the night without waking up at 3 a.m. to check if he'd texted back. When I got home on Sunday night, curiosity finally got the better of me. I opened his chat for the first time in 10 days. The scroll was endless. Day 4. Okay, this is getting immature, Chloe. I gave you your space. Now you're just being petty. Day 5. Are you seriously not going to answer me? I'm trying to be the bigger person here. Day 6. I'm actually worried now. If you don't text me back by tonight, I'm calling your sister. Day 7. After I posted the sunset photo. Oh, so you can post on Instagram, but you can't text your boyfriend? You're a piece of work. I see your true colors now. His worry had a very short shelf life before it curdled into pure, unadulterated ego. He hadn't texted because he missed me. He texted because he couldn't handle the fact that his needy puppy had stopped barking at his heels. Monday morning, I went back to work. I'm a senior project manager for a restoration firm, a job that requires a high level of organization and zero tolerance for drama. Around 10 a.m., my office assistant, Marcus, popped his head into my office. Hey, Chloe, some guy named Julian has called the front desk twice. Said it was an emergency regarding your health? My blood ran cold. Did he leave a number? Yeah, but he sounded intense, Chloe. I told him you were in a meeting, and he started lecturing me about responsibility. Do you want me to block the line? Please, I said, my voice tight. And if he shows up, do not let him pass the lobby. I called Maya immediately. He's calling my office now. He's telling them I'm having a health emergency. He's spiraling, Maya said firmly. He thought he could bench you like a substitute player and bring you back in when he was bored. Now that he realizes you've left the stadium, he's trying to burn the building down. Don't give in, Chloe. The minute you respond, you validate his belief that he can manipulate you into a conversation. That afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Chloe, it's Julian's mom, Elena. Honey, Julian is a wreck. He says you've blocked him and he's heartbroken. He's barely eating. Can you please just talk to him? He's such a good boy. He just gets stressed with work. I stared at the screen. Elena was a sweet woman, but she'd spent 30 years enabling her son's episodes. I realized then that this was Julian's playbook. When you can't control the person, you control how others see them. I didn't reply to Elena. I didn't reply to Julian. I went home, cooked a beautiful dinner for one, and started a woodworking project I'd been putting off for months, a custom bookshelf for my hallway. I spent the evening sanding wood, the rhythmic sound of the sandpaper drowning out the ghost of Julian's voice telling me I was suffocating him. I was finally breathing, and it was Julian who was gasping for air. The thing about space is that it's a mirror. When you finally get it, you're forced to look at yourself without the distraction of someone else's needs. For 7 months, I had been Julian's mirror, reflecting back whatever version of himself he wanted to see that day. Now that I'd turned away, he was staring into a void, and he hated what he saw. By the start of week 3, the worry and irritation in his messages had evolved into something much darker. The smear campaign. I started getting concerned DMs from people I barely knew, acquaintances from the barbecue where we met. "Hey, Chloe, Julian mentioned you're going through a really dark patch. Hope you're getting the help you need." "Is it true you're refusing to speak to anyone? That's a classic sign of a manic episode, sweetie. Call someone." He wasn't just calling me needy anymore. He was pathologizing me. He was using my silence, the very silence he demanded, as evidence that I was mentally unstable. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. He had created the problem by pushing me away, and now he was heroically trying to save me from the consequences of his own actions. On Wednesday, I met up with Melissa, the wife of the friend who hosted that first barbecue. She looked at me like she was seeing a ghost. "You look remarkably sane," she said, leaning in over her coffee. "I feel remarkably sane, Mel. Why?" She sighed and slid her phone across the table. It was a group chat Julian had started with 4 of our mutual friends. "Julian, I'm worried she's going to hurt herself. She just went totally cold. One day we're fine, the next she's a stone wall. I think she's been hiding some serious trauma. I'm just trying to be there for her, but she's punishing me for caring." I felt a surge of nausea. Punishing him? Mel, he told me I was suffocating him. He called me a needy puppy because I asked about dinner plans. He told me he'd text me when he felt like it. I'm just waiting for him to feel like it. Melissa's jaw dropped. "Are you serious? He told us you were the one who blew up at him because he was too busy with a big project. He said you gave him an ultimatum. Either he quits his job or you're done." "I haven't spoken to him in 20 days, I said calmly. "Check the timestamps on his worried messages to you. Then check the ones he sent me. I guarantee they don't match." We spent the next hour cross-referencing. While he was telling Melissa he was sick with worry, he was sending me messages like, "You're a narcissist for doing this to me. You'll never find anyone who puts up with your games." "He's dangerous, Chloe," Melissa whispered. "This isn't just a breakup. He's trying to destroy your reputation so that when you finally tell the truth, no one believes you." "He's trying to force a reaction," I replied. "He wants me to scream, to cry, to defend myself, because as long as I'm defending myself, he's the judge. But I'm not playing. I'm not the puppy anymore, Mel. I'm the one who walked out of the kennel, and I'm not looking back." I left that coffee shop feeling a strange mix of rage and absolute clarity. I realized that Julian didn't love me. He loved the version of me that he could control. The moment I became an independent variable, someone he couldn't predict or move on his chessboard, I became a threat that had to be neutralized. That night, for the first time, I didn't just mute him. I moved all his messages to a secure folder and backed them up. If he wanted to play the unstable card, I was going to have a very long, very documented receipt of his own unraveling. I went to bed early. I had a big day at the job site the next morning. But as I drifted off, I didn't know that the silent part of this drama was about to come to a crashing, violent end. The silence didn't just break, it shattered. Tuesday evening, 3 weeks to the day since our last phone call. I was in my kitchen, sawdust still in my hair from finishing the final shelf of my woodworking project. I was pouring a glass of wine, enjoying the quiet hum of my own home, when the sound started. Thump, thump, thump. It wasn't a knock. It was the sound of a fist hitting solid oak with enough force to rattle the hinges. My heart jumped into my throat. I looked at the security feed on my phone. It was Julian. He looked unrecognizable. His hair, usually perfectly styled, was a bird's nest. His designer shirt was wrinkled, and even through the grainy camera lens, I could see the frantic, bloodshot look in his eyes. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. I walked to the door but didn't open it. I engaged the heavy security chain first, then cracked it just 2 inches. The cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of his expensive cologne and something sour, anxiety. "Chloe, open this door. I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway." "I'm right here, Julian," I said, my voice unnervingly calm even to my own ears. "Why are you screaming?" He practically threw his weight against the door, but the chain held. "Where have you been? I've been calling you. I've been texting. I went to your office. I thought you were dead, or worse." "Worse than dead?" I asked. "Like needy or suffocating?" He froze. The color drained from his face, then rushed back in a hot, angry purple. This isn't funny, Chloe. I've sent you over 100 messages. You haven't looked at a single one. You've put me through hell. Julian, let's go back 3 weeks, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You told me you were exhausted. You told me my energy was like a puppy needing constant attention. You told me, and I'm quoting here, stop being so needy. I'll text you when I feel like it. So I stopped. I gave you exactly the space you asked for. Did you not feel like it, after all? I didn't mean it like that, he spat. You know how I get when I'm stressed. You're twisting my words to punish me. This is psychological warfare, Chloe. It's manipulative. No, I replied. Manipulation is calling my office and telling my assistant I'm having a health emergency because I didn't reply to a coffee text. Manipulation is telling Melissa I'm having a manic episode. I've just been living my life, Julian. I've been gardening. I've been working. I've been giving you space. Isn't that what you wanted? His demeanor shifted instantly. It was like watching a slide projector click to the next image. The anger vanished, replaced by a sudden, watery vulnerability. He slumped against the doorframe, a single tear tracking through the stubble on his cheek. Chloe, please. I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I missed you so much it was making me physically sick. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I just need us to go back to how it was. Can you please just unchain the door so I can hold you? For a second, the old Chloe, the puppy, wanted to reach out. But then I remembered the group chat. I remembered him telling our friends I was hiding trauma to cover for his own cruelty. The way it was, Julian, was me waiting by the phone while you decided if I was worth 20 minutes of your time. The way it was you keeping me on a shelf like a trophy you only wanted to look at when you were bored. I'm not a trophy, and I'm definitely not your puppy anymore. You're being so cold, he whispered, the mask of the victim slipping back on. I never knew you were capable of being this cruel. I'm not being cruel, I said, beginning to close the door. I'm being exactly what you asked for, unbothered, silent, and most importantly, not yours. Go home, Julian. We're done. If you close this door, Chloe, that's it. We are finished. I'll never call you again. Julian, I said through the tiny crack, I've been waiting for you to stop calling for 3 weeks. Please, keep your word for once. I shut the door. The deadbolt clicked home. He stayed there for 10 minutes, screaming at the wood, telling me I was a narcissistic ice queen, and that I'd regret losing the only man who ever truly saw me. Then, finally, I heard his car tires screeching down the driveway. I sat down on the floor and took a long, shaky breath. My hands were trembling, but for the first time in 7 months, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt like I had finally reached the shore. The morning after the door incident, I woke up to a chillingly quiet house. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, finally opening the digital vault. I needed to see exactly what I was dealing with. 134 unread messages. Reading them in one sitting was like watching a psychological thriller in fast forward. Days 1-3. Casual, condescending. Hope you've cooled off. Let me know when you're ready to be an adult. Days 4-9. The pivot. Chloe, this isn't funny anymore. Is this about the dinner thing? Seriously? Days 10-15. The hero phase. I'm coming over to check on you. I'm worried you've relapsed into some old depression. I have never been depressed, but he was building a file for his audience. Days 16-20. Pure vitriol. You're a monster. My therapist, he doesn't have one, says this silent treatment is a form of domestic abuse. Day 21. Yesterday. I'm at your door. Open it, or I'm calling the police to report a missing person. Then came the backup plan. I scrolled through my Instagram requests. There was a message from a woman named Sarah Beth. I recognized the name. She was a friend of Julian's from work, the one he always said was basically a sister whenever I asked why she was liking his photos at 2:00 a.m. Sarah Beth. Hey, Chloe. I don't know what's going on, but Julian is devastated. He's been crying on my shoulder for 2 weeks. How could you just ghost someone who loves you this much? It's really cruel. I felt a wave of clarity so sharp it was almost painful. While Julian was sick with worry and unable to eat, he was perfectly capable of spending 2 weeks crying on the shoulder of the girl he told me not to worry about. He wasn't mourning us. He was auditioning my replacement while using my absence to play the martyr. An hour later, my phone rang. Patricia, Julian's mother. I took a breath and answered. I owed her that much. Patricia, hi. Oh, Chloe, honey. Her voice was thick with tears. I've been up all night. Julian came over in such a state. He says you've changed, that you were so cold to him last night. He's a wreck, Chloe. Can't you just forgive him? He's always been so sensitive. Patricia, I said softly, Julian didn't tell you the whole story. He told me I was suffocating him and a needy puppy because I wanted to see him more than once a week. He told me to stop being desperate and only talk to him when he felt like it. So I did. And now that he's lost control of the situation, he's calling it abuse. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end. He said that? She whispered. He said that and worse. Patricia, you're a sweet woman and I know you love him, but Julian doesn't want a girlfriend. He wants a fan who doesn't talk back. I can't be that for him anymore. I see, she said, her voice sounding small. I'm so sorry, Chloe. I suppose I've spent too much time making excuses for his temper. You're a good girl. You deserve to be happy. We hung up and I felt a weight lift. But Julian wasn't done. Within 20 minutes, a text came from an unknown number. This is Julian. My mom told me what you said. You're a liar and a manipulator. You've turned my own family against me. I'm blocking you on everything. Don't ever try to contact me again. We are done. I actually laughed out loud. He was blocking the woman who hadn't reached out to him in 21 days. It was the ultimate, you can't fire me, I quit move. But the laughter stopped an hour later when I received an email. The subject line, formal notice of intent to sue. Julian had found a template online for intentional infliction of emotional distress. He was claiming that my sustained neglect and psychological abandonment had caused him professional and personal damages. He wasn't just trying to get me back anymore, he was trying to ruin me. The email was the final mask drop. Julian hadn't just lost a girlfriend, he had lost a resource, and he was reacting like a corporate raider whose hostile takeover had been thwarted. I didn't panic. I called my cousin, Tara, who's a senior paralegal. I forwarded her the email while I sat in my truck at a job site, watching my crew unload lumber. Chloe, Tara said, her voice crackling over the Bluetooth, I'm looking at this notice. It's not even on a law firm's letterhead. The language is, well, it's hilarious. Psychological abandonment? That's not a legal cause of action for a breakup. He basically copied and pasted from a How to Sue Your Ex blog. So I'm safe? Legally? Yes. But Chloe, the fact that he went through the effort to draft this means he's moved from annoying ex to harassment. You need to be proactive. I didn't have time to be proactive that afternoon because the harassment went physical. Around 2:00 p.m., my foreman, Gus, called me. Hey, boss. That tall guy with the fancy car is back at the main office. He's making a scene in the lobby, yelling at Marcus about stolen property and emotional damages. Marcus is trying to get him to leave, but the guy is demanding to see your personnel file. My stomach did a slow, nauseating flip. Gus, call the police right now. Do not let him near the back offices. By the time I drove across town to the office, the police were already there. Julian was sitting on the curb, his head in his hands, performing the role of the broken man for two officers. My office manager, Donna, a 62-year-old woman who has seen it all, was standing in the doorway with her arms crossed. He told the officers you're going through a crisis and he's just trying to secure your assets before you lose your mind, Donna said, her voice dripping with contempt. I told him the only thing he was securing was a one-way trip to the county jail if he didn't shut his mouth. The officers spoke to me. I showed them my phone. I showed them the "Stop Being So Needy" text from 3 weeks ago. I showed them the 134 unread messages. I showed them the fake legal threat. Ms. Vance, the older officer said, handing back my phone, this isn't a domestic dispute. This is stalking. He's using concern as a weapon. If I were you, I'd head to the courthouse before they close. I didn't go home. I went straight to the county courthouse. I sat in a plastic chair for 3 hours, filling out a petition for a temporary restraining order, TRO. I attached printouts of the messages, the office incident report, and a statement from Melissa about the group chat smear campaign. The judge granted it within 20 minutes. Julian was served the next morning. The reaction was instantaneous. Since he couldn't text me, he went on a social media rampage. He posted a long, rambling, open letter about how strong women use the legal system to castrate men who dare to set boundaries. He called me a narcissistic predator who had groomed him into a relationship only to discard him for fun. But he made a mistake. In his rage, he forgot he was under a no-contact order. He sent his friend, Sarah Beth, to my house with a handwritten letter. I didn't open the door. I saw her on the doorbell camera and called the police. Chloe, please, Sarah Beth yelled through the door. He's in a dark place. He just wants to explain. He says if you don't drop the order, his career is over. Sarah Beth, I said through the speaker, the police are 5 minutes away. If you're still on my porch when they get here, you'll be cited for third-party contact. Leave. Now. She fled. That night, I received a voicemail from a burner number. It was Julian, his voice thick with what sounded like a mix of whiskey and ego. A restraining order, Chloe? Really? After everything I did for you? You're a child. You're a pathetic, needy little girl playing at being a grown-up. You're going to regret this. My family has connections you can't even dream of. You're done in this town. You're so f***ing done. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I simply saved the audio file and sent it to my lawyer. Violation number 1. The silence that followed the restraining order was different. It wasn't the heavy, anxious silence of the first week. It was the quiet of a house after a storm has finally moved offshore. The legal system doesn't move fast, but it moves with a weight Julian wasn't prepared for. Over the next month, he tried to test the boundaries 2 more times, once through a fake support group account on Instagram and once by, coincidentally, showing up at my favorite grocery store at 8:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. Each time, I didn't engage. I didn't scream. I simply pulled out my phone, took a photo for the police, and walked away. Watching him realize that his charm and his anger had no power over me was the most satisfying part of the saga. He had spent months trying to convince me I was small, needy, and lucky to have him. Now, he was just a name on a police report. 3 months later, I was sitting on my newly finished deck, the one I'd built with my own hands during those weeks of space. My sister Maya was there, along with a man named Leo. Leo is a nurse I met through Melissa. On our second date, I had felt that old, familiar spark of anxiety. I'd sent him a text asking if we were still on for dinner, and I immediately felt the phantom voice of Julian in my head, calling me a needy puppy. I had started to apologize. Sorry, I know I'm being a bit much. Leo had looked at me, genuinely confused. For asking about dinner? Chloe, I appreciate that you're responsive. My ex used to play these games where she'd disappear for days, just to see if I'd chase her. It was exhausting. I like knowing where I stand with people. I realized then that the needing wasn't the problem. The person was. Ran into Melissa yesterday, Maya said, snapping me back to the present. She said Julian's backup plan, Sarah Beth, dumped him 3 weeks ago. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Apparently, he started telling her she was smothering him because she wanted to go to a movie on a Friday night. He tried the same routine, the slow fade, the needy labels. But Sarah Beth didn't wait 3 weeks. She just packed his stuff in a garbage bag and changed the locks. I laughed. A genuine, deep sound. Some people don't want a partner, Maya. They want a fan club they can turn on and off at will. Julian didn't want space. He wanted the power to grant it. My phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from Leo, who was sitting right across from me. You look beautiful tonight. Also, I'm hungry. Pizza? I smiled and texted back. Pizza sounds perfect. That's the thing about a healthy relationship. It doesn't feel like a negotiation. It doesn't feel like you're constantly auditioning for a spot in someone's life. It feels like communication. Julian wanted me to believe that wanting a good morning text or a Friday night date made me broken. He wanted me to believe that my heart was a burden. But as I sat there in the cool evening air, I realized the truth. I wasn't the needy one. He was the one who was so desperate for control that he destroyed the only thing that was real. He got exactly what he asked for. He got his space, he got his silence, and I got my life back. The restraining order is permanent now. From what I hear, he's still posting vague quotes about surviving toxic women. But no one is really listening anymore. The puppy grew up, and she's finally found her own way home.